bit of moody, melancholy way to start the day there, or finish it, depending on where you are. Maybe just have some lunch over it. I don't know. Anyway, I am here with Chris. Chris Fantana? Is that how we pronounce it?
Yeah.
Fantana.
Yeah, I always say think Spanner.
Fantana. What a great name.
Yeah.
Quite possibly the best surnamed guest we've ever had on. And Chris is the brains and the hands and the ears behind a brand of amp that we've been stocking for a few months now called Rift. And we thought we'd invite Chris down to tell us about how you got into making amplifiers and what the range is, and explain a bit about what they do. So tell us a bit more about yourself. Who are you?
Well, I'll tell you how it started. I was about 14, 15 years old, playing this band, and I had an old Marshall solid state combo, and the volume knob broke on it.
As they periodically do.
And there wasn't anywhere in the area somewhere we could go and get these things fixed. So I rang up the local music shop and they said, "Oh yeah, we have a service, but you've got to you bring it down, leave it with us. We'll drive it out to our repair guy, and then in a couple of months you'll get a quote. And then if you want to go ahead,
It's not Andertons, by the way. I'm just saying.
No.
We're 3 months to get a quote.
Yes, if you want to get a quote, if you want to go ahead with it, great, and then they'll fix the amp and bring it back." And I was like, well, I'm 15 years old, what else can I do? So you had to get the amp down there on a Monday, because that's when they drove out to the repair guy.
Right.
So if your amp broke down at a gig at the weekend, that was fine.
Yeah.
If you broke on a Tuesday, you'd have to wait till the following Monday, then they'd take it off, and then you'd wait God knows how long. And they'd come back and say, yes, it'll be X amount of pounds.
Yeah.
I remember the quote came back and it was £120
Wow.
to replace a volume knob on a solid state Marshall.
That was probably only worth 80.
And this was, I don't know, what was this, 2000, 2001?
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I don't charge that now.
Yes. No, I don't think we
to
do
replace
either.
a volume pot on an amp. So there's got to be a better way. So I asked the old man, I said, how do we do this? He said, well, go on this website, order a pot, and we'll work out how to do it.
And you didn't kill yourself.
Well,
so things must have gone okay.
I've taken some shocks. And then I just started going from there, learning how to bias, friends' amps that we're, in bands with, and, speakers blown. Right, how do we replace that? What does this thing do?
Yeah.
Is that a bit dangerous? Probably don't touch it. And it kind of grew and grew. And then 2012, someone bought me like an amp kit.
What were you doing for? Because have you got a formal electronics background, or was your job?
I do now.
Right,
but I didn't back then.
You didn't back then, and
no,
your job wasn't involved.
I was a guitar teacher.
Okay.
Mainly teaching primary schools. So, you need Twinkle Twinkle Little Star playing. I could teach it to you.
Well, that's good for you, man. I'll learn it later.
Yeah, big time. So that's what I was doing. And someone said, "Oh yeah, you ever thought about doing this?" So I asked for a kit for Christmas from Mrs. Rift, and I built it, and it worked first time. This thing's great, but I quickly realised if something had gone wrong, I don't know how to ask the questions to the right people of how to fix it.
Was the kit one of those like sort of turret board style do everything, or was there just like it was a PCB and you just sort of screw bits together, or what was the?
Yeah, it was do everything.
It was a do everything.
Yeah,
kit,
and it had step-by-step instructions, but
cool.
they kind of assumed that you knew what a soldering iron was,
right?
And I kind of ham-fisted my way through it, but other people must have really struggled. Anyway, I got this thing working, and then I was thinking, right, how do I mod it?
Yeah.
Where do I find that information? And everyone you ring up won't tell you.
Right.
They're keeping that information up there. How do I make the amp brighter? Well, you need to find out yourself. I'm not going to tell you. Right, okay, fine. So I learned by doing, not by reading.
Yeah.
So I found a way. And then someone said to me, "Oh, can you build one for me?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I can. I'd love to." So you take it down the local jam night and.
So this was a kit that you built for them, or this was a ground up?
No, this was a kit.
I'll just build myself.
And they said, right. I've always fancied one of them, but I'm not confident at building it. Would you do it for me?
Yeah.
How much do you charge? I don't know, 12-pack of beer or something, whatever you want. And then it just kind of grew and grew, building more and more amps, modding them, trying to take them where I wanted them to go, looking at original designs and saying, well, how can I improve that? How can I make that do what I want it to do? And then the answer, of course, is in all of the old military manuals,
right,
from back in the 40s and 50s, when valve stuff was everywhere.
Yeah.
And you buy the book, you read through it, and there's the answer.
I remember being at Black Star before Christmas, and we did a Mythbusters thing there, and two of their designers, and particularly their MD Ian, who's ex-Marshall, he brought out this textbook from, like, I think it was the 40s, and you'll have to go and watch the video to see what it was, but it was some very sort of encyclopedic name for amplification and valves and stuff, and it was, I was just opening things at random pages, and there's a lot of science in there about how you make affect how a sound is amplified. But yes, but like you say, from from the 40s, it's not a new thing or anything.
Yeah, there seems to be this unspoken rule, especially now that valve stuff isn't taught at universities. That you just don't help people out, and that you make people go off and find out for themselves. I found that really frustrating. But once I found all these old radio and TV repair handbooks and service manuals for old oscilloscopes, and it kind of all clicked. What I found I was really good at is imagining how your guitar signal is amplified, EQ'd and attenuated through each stage of an amp. So I could, in my head, voice an amplifier and get it pretty much bang on the first build.
Right.
But I couldn't tell you how I was doing it.
Do you have that sort of, all the good amp manufacturers that I've, I say all of them, I guess I know Martin Kidd very well, the Cornford and Victory guy. And he's got this uncanny thing where you go, could it just be a bit more, like what I mean, Martin, when it's like, it's got that kind of chuffy, chewy thing, when it does a thing where it goes, and he's like, I think I do. And then he'll come back with a modded thing and go, you mean like that? And you go, yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, Martin's very good at turning your words into electronics.
Yes.
Understand how to convert that and to translate it and say, okay, well, actually, I need to tweak this, I need to tweak that. And I think Martin said in an interview, he thinks in a spectrum analyzer.
His background's remarkably, he was a guitar teacher who tinkered.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
He was Paul Cornford's guitar teacher. And that's how that all happened.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So anyway, so I just kept building amps for friends and local musicians and tweaking them. And some guy would come up with a stupid idea. Can I have a 200 watt Super Lead Plexi?
Yeah.
If you want it, I'll try and build it. And get zapped along the way. And then the teaching work kind of started to slow down. It was getting very competitive, and
a lot of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star competition out there.
Oh,
yeah. Tough to make a living out of that.
And a lot of it's become very target based.
Right. Targeting.
And the one thing I hate most in the world is red tape.
Right.
And they were saying, you can't do this, you've got to do it this way. Well, no, this is how I want to do it. So Riff started to grow slowly.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, I went full time with it. I canned in the teaching. And with just a tiny bit of money, set up a website, built an amp, put some demos out there, and it just, I don't want to say snowballed because it wasn't that extreme, but it just slowly started to gather pace. And then I've just been going ever since. Just my strength has always been taking an original design and improving it and making it do what musicians want it to do. Whether that be, just giving it a bit more power so you can gig it in a pub or a club, or it's, can we make the reverb better? Stop it being so splashy. And that's really where I found my strengths lie. Until I started doing ground up designs. When actually I figured out I really enjoy doing this. Let's do something completely original. And let's get it to market and see what the reaction is.
Well, so we first met Chris, and this is kind of how this came about, when we were up seeing Thorpe of Thorpe Effects, Adrian Thorpe, during the early stages of Pete Honori's the Dane pedal thing. And Adrian is on a, like these farm yard things where there are like 10 or so outbuildings, and they're often rented out to little sort of artisan craftsmen and builders and
it's like a low rent industrial estate.
Kind of. I didn't want to say it like that, but yeah, okay. So it's a low rent industrial estate. And anyway, Thorpe said, we should go and see this guy in the unit opposite, because he's making some cool amplifiers that you might like. So we sort of totted over, and it's everything that you imagine magical about, one guy, not in a shed, but like, what you'd sort of refer to in a shed, just kind of doing stuff. And there was some really nice amps in there, and we tried something. It was very cool. And then the conversation was, I guess, just fortuitous timing, because you were kind of like going, I probably am at that point now where, in order for me to go that next level up in terms of selling, I need to get a retailer involved rather than just trying to do everything direct. And
that
sort of went from there, wasn't it?
I was looking to grow the business to that next point. And everyone, I said, well, you need to get a salesman, you need to employ a salesman.
Yeah. And
so I'm looking, how to employ somebody, what you kind of need. And then Adrian said, there's already a business model for that. What? He said, well, retail stores.
Yes,
they exist.
Yes.
And they do it for you. Of course.
Yeah.
And then, luckily, through an introduction to you came into the workshop and started playing all the amps and causing all sorts of trouble.
And I like. So we kind of left there with this like, okay. And this is textbook. This is textbook. I think possibly under the chapter bribery, Chris turned up with an amp called a PR6, which is a lovely little small valve amplifier. And it said, hand wired for the captain on the front of it. And he just went, I've got a gift for you. And of course, he go, oh man, no. And I played it, and it's great. And there's a whole other story about like a 2 or 3 year journey that I'd been through of trying to find a little amplifier to use in my office that sounded great, but was really, really quiet. And I'd actually given up on valve amplifiers because I think I'd had like a Blues Junior, and I just couldn't get the good sound, low enough volume. So I'd gone over to Yamaha THRs and Vox Adios and everything. So I actually, in all honesty, when you gave me that amplifier, I was thinking, well, I've been here and it won't work. Plugged it in at low volume, got the best guitar sound I'd ever had. Completely like I'm never plugging into the Yamaha THR again. Obviously, I should caveat all this by going.
See, I love the THR.
Well, and your amp is like 10 times the price, or whatever, 8 times the price of it. So we must caveat that the Yamaha and the Vox are still amazing for the money. But yeah, I was like, ooh, and I've used that amp, in every day almost since having it.
Thank you.
And then of course through guilt of being bribed like that, guilt and bribery.
It really was
very effective. Guilt and bribery.
Yeah.
We said, well, we better order some amplifiers from you. So of course we then put some amplifiers in Andertons, which we've been selling since, and you guys can come in and try and stuff. And this was the one thing that my little 6-watt got a bit exposed was when we were in here and we tonked it up a little bit, and it was just like, okay, it's not a loud amplifier, and it doesn't really want to, it's perfect for using in the office and at home, but it didn't have the headroom to sort of do all the big pedal demos and everything. So you built Pete a sort of a purple version of the PR35.
Yeah.
And that is such a beast. We use this all the time in video demos now, and Pete loves it, and I love it. It's a great amplifier.
Yeah. So that's.
So shall we start on the PR, because there are 3 or 4 main streams to sort of riff the amp.
I try not to overcomplicate things, but I try to offer the biggest range possible.
Yeah.
So if you say this is what I need, I can say I've got it.
Yeah.
So let's imagine a West Coast small amplifier.
Yes.
That's known for its cleans and its sweetness.
Are you going specific models? We're allowed to say things. I mean, you're talking about Princeton.
I am,
presumably.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I love those old.
It's a beautiful amp.
An original 65 Princeton reverb.
Yeah.
12 watts, 1x10. Amazing tremolo, good reverb.
Yeah.
Interactive tone stack. You plug it in, it's easy to dial in, and then you just play.
Yes.
You enjoy it.
And that's kind of, I guess to a certain extent, that's a little bit where I am with the PR6. Is much more like that sort of volume and sound of a Princeton.
And I was looking at the Princeton Reverb, and the next model up, which is the Deluxe Reverb, which is 22 watts, and a 1x12. I'm thinking, well, there's a 10 watt difference there. We should be able to make a Princeton Reverb, get it to that pub and club level, where a guy can turn up with his Strat or his Les Paul and a couple of pedals and do his jam nights with it.
Yeah.
Where traditionally a Princeton Reverb might struggle. So we bumped up the power to 18 watts, and then if you're doing a bit more power, there's room in the cab for a 12-inch speaker. So that's kind of a given. And that thing outsells everything else I build 4-1.
This is the PR18.
PR18.
Yeah.
I can't build them quick enough.
Amazing.
In fact, I struggle getting the transformers wound to hit demand for those things. So that's an incredible. I just kind of hit the sweet spot with it, because it still sounds sweet like a Princeton. Still got the trem, still got the amazing reverb, and it still does what you want it to do.
We should show.
You can just get it to.
So and is the 35 essentially just double the output stage of the 18?
Yeah,
it's like a 4-valve rather than.
I originally designed the 35 for the pedal guys because I wanted to do a pedal platform.
Yeah.
Still in that portable, guitar in one hand, amp in another, pedal board on your back. Yeah. That type of thing.
Yeah.
So we did a 6L6 output stage on it. And custom wound transformers just to bring it up to 35 watts. Yeah. But again, it still sounds like a.
I mean, you've heard lots, but let's turn the tuner. It's got that great reverb. And the beautiful trem system in it as well, vibrato. It's just a great amp. And like you say, it's got the headroom for the pedals, so it sounds great with all the sort of drive pedals and stuff through it. So.
And when Pete said to me, I need an amp that works with his purple telly and the Dane pedal, I was like, Pete, this is what you need.
This is what you need.
And we'll do it in purple for you.
Oh, good man. Yeah. So PR, think Princeton, that's what you're kind of saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
After we did the 35, someone said, I want this, but I don't need the big volume from an 18. But I still want enough headroom, so if I want to run pedals with it at home, it doesn't compress too early. So we just designed a 6-watt version. Yeah. But it's not a single-ended amplifier. It's still a push-pull amp. Two 6v6s. And it's perfect for. I mean, you've got one under your desk.
Yeah. I mean, that's my. As I said, that my experience of that amplifier is. For all those, I mean, it's shocking recording technique and everything, but all my iPhone videos that I do in Facebook, on Facebook, that's what I use. And I will use pedals and loopers and all kinds of stuff. All the reverb that you hear is from the amplifier. I don't use the vibrato. It's not particularly an effect that I particularly use, but it sounds amazing. And it was only really when it was brought into this room and it was turned up a little bit, and then we started putting the pedals over that it went a bit scratchy sounding, and it was like, okay, that's where clearly you need
find the limits of the amp.
Yeah, but for anybody, literally anybody who has a nice guitar collection that they play at home and they just want a great clean sounding amplifier to play with it, PR6 is fantastic.
I sell a lot of PR6s to other businesses who use them at exhibitions,
right,
on their stands. They're just lined up one after another because they're perfect for that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And studios as well, when you don't need to crank it.
So that was the PR series. I guess, as rich as Fender's heritage is in guitar amplifiers, the other often cloned or other brand of amp that inspires a builder to try and mod and go somewhere is Marshall. So was the Plexi the sort of the next
I've offered the low watt Plexi for a while. It was one of the first models that I did, and again it was a case of right. This.
Sorry about my squeaky chair. I was just looking for it. Here it is over this side. Yeah.
And again, that was one of those. Right, what's right about this amp? Why do people love it? Well, it crunches at low volume. It's got a, it's an oversized cab, so it doesn't sound boxy at all. So you don't really miss reverb. And it sounds great with your, Strat, Tele or Les Paul, the trifecta. But what is wrong with it? Well, the originals had 2 channels, but they were the same.
Right.
It was 2 identical channels, and they just had a volume and a single tone knob.
Yeah.
And then to make it even weirder, because it was a Watkins Dominator clone, it had a tremolo section.
Right.
And I can't think of any customer inquiry where someone said to me, "You build me a Plexi with tremolo."
Yeah. Yeah. There's not many of those sort of.
So, well, how can we make this different? And the answer, of course, is to look at the bigger amps, like the JTM 45, and say, well, let's take the bright channel from a JTM 45 with a treble middle bass tone stack, and put that on instead. So now you've got 2 independent channels that are voiced differently, respond differently, and you can use an AB pedal to switch between them if you want different sounds. You can even ABY them, have them running at the same time, and dial them in that way, like you traditionally do with a Plexi, where you jump the channels. Yeah.
Well, what's the in terms of different sizes? What's the Plexi range?
So we do the 18 watt. There's a 45 watt coming.
Right.
And I do 100 watt and 200 watt super leads as custom orders.
Crikey.
Yeah. Well,
So there's no smaller one. The 18 watt is the smallest
18's
one.
as small as it goes.
And sorry if you covered this already, but is that going down to EL84s now, or is that still the pair of EL34s?
No, this is EL84s.
So that's EL84s in that one, and then the 45 will be 34s, will it?
No, it'll be KT66s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the original JTM 45s, but we'll give it the riff treatment and see where we end up with that. I always like the really old JTM 45s. If you go to the Marshall Museum in Bletchley, they've got number 1 in the museum.
Yeah.
I thought, let's see what that sounds like.
Didn't they take that on the road?
Well, they bought it they bought it back from, I'm going to say Billy Gibbons, but I'm going to get shouted at by YouTube now.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different amplifier, but certainly at the Marshall Museum, and it must have been to celebrate their 50th anniversary or something, so 5 or 6 years ago. They toured around the world, or with like unbelievable security with the number 1.
Number 1.
So not like the number 1 of a Plexi or whatever, but the number 1 Marshall amp ever. And it's like it's so cool. It doesn't. I mean, it's pretty unassuming when you see it. It's just like an old amp, but
with huge respect to those guys, it does look like a secondary school electronics project. Yeah. It's kind of ham-fisted together, but then you kind of see what they're going for and what they were thinking at the time. And I look at the way they route the wires inside and the way they do all that stuff, and I think they really knew what they were doing, even though it was a basement.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I've read lots of, and these are probably all opinions and embellished to sort of make to sort of, if you like, make the story more interesting. But you've got all the original Fender amps, which were allegedly just GEC, General Electric Company schematics for other amplifiers.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So that's all they are. And then you've got all the original Marshalls, which are just Fender Bassmans with components changed due to availability over here versus over there. So yeah, you've got this whole lineage of just intertwined copies of copies of copies. And I suppose ultimately it probably does come down to the set of ears on the tech and the designer that's doing it, just going, what do I think sounds good, rather than...
Yeah, a great analogy is look at the automotive world.
Yeah.
It's still 4 wheels and an engine.
Only
there's
just.
a million different designs. Yeah. So it's
going to be a hovercraft and a robot soon. They'll be fine. But all right, so that's the Plexi.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of the fact we're probably not going to plug into all of these, but we'll put a link in the description below of a video where Pete and I plug into all of these, and we give the Plexi a proper thrashing. So I know there's a couple of other amps. There's certainly a Vibro.
Yeah, I offer different wattage models of most of your classic designs.
Yeah.
And some of them will have modern features like effects loops, and some I've added reverb where it didn't have reverb, and just try and make them as gig friendly as possible for the guy that just wants to take one amp out and use it.
When I saw you last year, the amp that you were most excited about and were just launching was the Hawker, which was the first amp where you felt this was really this was the Chris Fantana designed amp rather than the tweaked version of someone else's amp.
It's a ground up design.
Yeah.
So one of my customers has got a huge collection of old vintage amps. And I went round to see him, to buy a guitar off him, in fact. And he was saying, look at all these old British amps. There's Watkins and Wem and Selmer, and some really early Voxes as well. And kind of stuff you don't see every day, even at my workshop, stuff that comes in for repair. And I'm playing through them all, and they all have this very unique British sound that isn't present on the stuff you get from Bletchley. That Plexi stuff. It's a definite British sound. You couldn't call it American whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's different in itself. It's like, well, what is that? They all had downsides. They all are massively over compressed and underpowered, and the tone stacks left a lot to be desired. But it's like, I want to try and capture the essence and what they're doing without those downsides. So I do all my designs on graph paper,
right?
Just a pencil, and just start tweaking and thinking where I want to take it. And we ended up with a Hawker. I think development time on it was about 9 months, and I wanted a 1x12 amp. Modern features, well, it's got to have an effects loop these days. It's got to have some sort of power scaling or power mode, and it's got to be the best amps for me are the ones that take less than 30 seconds to dial in.
For sure.
It's plug in, off we go. And so that's really where the Hawker came from.
Could you
when you hear it, and you've played it already, it's definitely a British voice.
It's got its own kind of vibe. When you talk about power scaling, listen, another sort of myth-bustery, or not myth-bustery. I think most people understand the purpose of a master volume. Control the volume output of the amplifier at the power stage. Most people understand attenuation, as in dump the output into a load and then control it from a big transformer, if you like. Where is power scaling just like Emperor's New Clothes, just a word that, or is it a third different form of guys who are into amplifiers, or people who are into amplifiers now, are going to be sort of following my thread here. People who aren't are going to be, I have no idea what he's talking about. But this idea that a valve amp sounds best cranked, and therefore the problem with master volume is you never get to crank it, whereas attenuation, you do get to crank it, but then you've got all of the downsides of the fact that the attenuation itself affects the tone. So power scaling, I know other brands have kind of gone, this is the solution to that, but I don't think I've ever really fully understood what it is.
So power scaling is traditionally, it's where you reduce the internal voltages inside the amplifier to lower its power, to scale down its power. But that with master volume, power scaling and attenuation, they're all three different answers to the same question, which is, how do I get that crank tone at low volume?
Yeah.
And my answer is, well, you can't.
And that's the only right answer, is because the loud guitar amp sound that you hear is lots of things like speakers and air and all sorts. So as soon as you don't have speakers and air, then you're missing something. But sorry, go on. You can't. You can make a very good attempt at it. But you never will, and it's because of the way your ears respond to volume. Right.
And to different frequencies at different volumes. So the minute you start to reduce the volume, you will hear a change in tone, and then you've got to compensate for that. Now, back in the the 50s and 60s, amp manufacturers would say, well, how loud do you need to be? Well, not very loud. Here's a 5-watt model.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be a bit louder. Here's a 15-watt model.
Mm-hmm.
Need to be. Are you playing Wembley? Here's a 200-watt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you buy the amp based on the volume you need, and you can still go the other way. Why are you playing a 100-watt amp if you're only at home?
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a lower wattage amp.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's still the best way to do it. It's just to buy the amp that's correct for your needs rather than trying to fudge it.
But how do you do that? How do you answer the Van Halen-y kind of fans? Where I should say I think there is an argument for a high headroom amp to play at lower volumes because of the dynamic response that it gives you. But I think what most people, when you get into attenuation and power scaling or whatever it might be, is there's this but Eddie Van Halen, blah 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 blah, or whoever, Joe Bonamassa, it's just how do I get that tone of everything about to explode out the front but low volume?
The answer today, I think, is modelling.
Right.
To be honest.
We need some Omen music to sort of come in like that, and Chris gets struck by a Valve lightning spear from the gods of Valve.
Two things that happen. First of all is, does your audience, does the average guy in the audience, can he tell the difference?
That's really interesting.
But I know you can when you're playing. You can feel it in your fingers.
I like to think I can. I mean, funnily enough, prior to this video, and I said I don't know what order they're going out. Ainsley Lister was in doing a Captain Meets, and I mentioned to him after the cameras had stopped. I said, "Have you ever done the whole Kemper modelling thing like that?" And he just went, "I'm not interested." And I just thought that's fundamentally the customer that doesn't want that product. It's just, it doesn't interest me.
Yeah,
it's not a rational.
I think if you're trying to get the sound of a 100-watt Plexi cranked, in your 1-bedroom flat with complaining neighbours, you're not going to do it with any form of power scaling or attenuation.
Yeah.
Your best bet is to look at a modelling amp.
Yeah.
And that's just being reasonable.
No,
but you see, I don't like amps that are quiet.
Right. But I should just get back. So fundamentally then, in layman's terms, power scaling adjusts the voltage. So you're effectively almost going, look, I've got this amp that can be a 50-watt amplifier, but as I turn it down, it becomes like a 5-watt or a 1-watt or whatever. You're sort of still gunning the output tubes to some form of capacity, so you're getting that clipping happening.
Yeah. But you'll notice with power scaling, it adds fizz as you turn it down. And that's the only one that I've heard that's got close to that is the Iron Man from Tone King.
Reactive load.
Yeah, I think that's...
But that's attenuation. That's not power scaling.
The one that's inbuilt to the amp.
But it's just an inbuilt attenuator.
Oh, is it?
It's not power scaling.
That's probably why it works better than the other power scaling.
It's just they built the attenuator into the back of the amp. I know, again, it's really... Obviously, 95% of the audience are asleep at the moment, so we're trying not to wake you up. It is really interesting. So before we move on, then, just explain to me for my own thing. If master volume isn't reducing voltage, what is master volume reducing?
It's reducing signal to the output stage.
Right.
It's doing nothing more than the volume pot on your guitar.
Right.
But for the output stage rather than the front end.
Well,
now there are different master volume designs. I don't want to go into them because it's a whole other can of worms. But on a master volume amp, you'll have traditionally you'll have a preamp volume and a master volume, and it allows you to independently control the drive to each section.
Yeah.
That's my favourite type.
Right. Just ye olde fashioned.
Absolutely. Well, it works the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I can balance the two in an infinite number of ways to get the sound I need for the room, the stage, whatever.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder, again, I know, I've been involved. I'm going to go back to the Martin Kidd thing. I mean, it's only because I know him so well, and I have often been asked by him to, you know, can I test something before it goes into production, just to like have an opinion on it. And I do remember going. He designed this version of power scaling, whatever, and I remember at the end of that going, I just think the one with the normal volume on it sounds better. Or so
I think it's a solution to a problem that I think people are inventing a problem.
Is it marketing? Is that what we're saying?
Well, it's useful to have an amp that you can play at lower volume. I mean, what guitarist wouldn't want that?
No. I just mean as in, does power scaling exist to give the marketing department a way to say that this amp's better than an amp just with a normal master volume? Controversial.
Could be. Could be.
I'm just. Hey, we'd love to get controversial on this. I might be putting words into your mouth.
Attenuation on my amps.
Right. I thought you said the Hawker had power scaling in it.
Well, that's got switching output valves.
Oh, we got a fourth way. What does that mean?
So rather than trying to scale something down and rein it back or reduce signal, why not just switch one of the valves off?
You mean that's a physical switch, or it works it out based on where the
it's
volume?
Physical switch.
Right. So that's a physical. You can just have one or two outputs. So you go.
And the benefit on the Hawker is that traditionally, when you switch a valve off, you then get a single-ended hum coming through. The valve is still conducting. It's just got no signal going to it.
Right.
So you retain
the valve you've switched off. You mean right? Yeah.
So you get the benefits of the drop in power. The tone doesn't change. You just get a lower volume. Right. Which actually is just what we want.
So you're still when you go to single-ended mode, are you still somehow, because the other valve is still conducting, are you still classing that as an AV, or is it because it goes single-ended class A?
It's class A when it's running clean, regardless if you've got one valve conducting or two.
Right.
But it just you're not amplifying the second signal.
I shouldn't ask these questions, to be honest with you, because I don't really know what I'm talking about. But you know, I'm trying to come across like I know I do.
My question is, does the result match your expectation?
Can
does this amp go quieter, and does the tone change? Yes, it goes quieter. Then the tone stays the same. That's what you want.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Well, look, enough talking about the Hawker again. We might even insert some playing. Could we insert some playing from the other video, do you think? Yes, we'll probably insert some playing from the other video of the Hawker being played.
And then take it to 8 watts. At the light speed from green.
If you want to see the extended version of that, go watch it. So the final one, which we have got mic'd up so we can hear, which is cool, and which we didn't have in the previous video that we shot, is the new Ainsley Lister model.
It's the new Ainsley Lister signature.
How did you meet Ainsley?
He rang me up. I'll never forget that phone call, because he said, "You build Princetons, don't you?" Yes. He said, "Well, I've got one, a Fender one, and it's broken."
Right.
"Can you fix it?" "Yes, come down." So he came to my flat, and we got it fixed. And then I said, "You ever up for doing some demos?" You know, I needed a new demo guy. And he said, "Yeah, I'll do that." And we just worked out a deal.
Yeah.
And I've been bugging him ever since to come and do videos for me, and he's been bringing me vintage amps to repair.
Right.
For well, I mean it's 2014.
Okay, so 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's Ains is great because he's got an ear like no one else. He can hear stuff that I can't hear, and then he can demonstrate that to you.
Right.
He's doing this weird thing. Right, I can't hear it, and they'll find a way. Tweak the amp and say, look, now you can hear it, and he's right, you can.
Yeah.
Which is great, especially when you're prototyping, developing stuff, because it takes you down the right path. But we were talking and say, well, let's, should we do a signature amp together? And then you have the conversation, what would that look like?
Yeah.
What does it need to do? Well, it's got to, Ains does 180 shows a year or something. Is that right?
No, you can't hear anything we're saying.
Me. All right, fair enough. So it's got to be bulletproof.
Yep.
And it's got to do everything that he wants from an amplifier.
Yep.
Because he rides the volume control like no one else I've seen. And it's got to have the best reverb.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of his sound. It's got to work with a Strat Telly. I think he's got 335 as well. That's his other thing. And so we went through probably 3 or 4 different prototypes of me getting it wrong and Ainsley telling me why.
Yeah.
And developing it. And then we only signed off on it last week. So February 2019. So it's a 35 watt Britishy voiced amplifier.
But a big clean sound though, didn't it? Well, it's not that British amps don't have a big clean sound, but it was. It's
got a bigger clean sound than you might expect.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, all right, it's great for Ainsley, but how do we make it usable for everyone else who might use it? So it's like, well, let's put an effects loop in it. Let's make sure.
For all the pedals that Ainsley has. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Totally.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
That was probably first on his list, wasn't it?
And we'd originally talked about having a high and a low input, and actually the input 2 never gets used. So let's just eliminate that, and let's make sure it's portable. So let's do a 1x12, and a 2x12 combo. And take it from there, and it's just this. I can't play it anywhere as good as he can. But even though he's a blues guitar player, this thing's got enough gain for an AC/DC cover band. Works with your volume pot. So we, 5 years in development or so, and we're launching it now.
That looks great.
And it's just one of those amps where, I'm proud of that one.
That's cool. Can I try your guitar?
Yeah.
I'm sort of. Obviously, it's a. Do you say a friend of yours, or just an associate of yours makes them, or?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine now. He wasn't when I ordered it. It's just a local luthier.
There's a hotbed of talent up in Milton Keynes, isn't there? It's just like a. So, but you were mentioning as well. What was it particularly you wanted about this guitar?
Okay, so have you got the coffee table book, Beauty of the Burst?
Yes,
that classic. Well, there's a guitar in there, and it's plain top. The red's faded, and it said it's got a rift sawn maple top.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. What on earth's rift sawn? And it's halfway between quarter sawn and flat sawn when they lumber it, and it's quite expensive to do. But some of those early 59s had a rift sawn top,
right?
Assuming that's just what came from the lumber mill. Not many of them have got them, and I really like the way it, the flame
So it's the way it's cut relative to the grain of the wood, right?
Yeah, it's cut at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
So you can't get as much of it out of a log than you can quarter saw on a flat saw.
Yeah.
And it kind of spoke to me as something I recognised, marching to the beat of a different drum and doing your own thing and steaming ahead to achieve what you want. And I said, one day I'll have a Les Paul made for me.
Or a guitar that looks like one before anybody sends.
Yeah, Pez Law, yeah.
Yes.
And every renowned Les Paul builder that I phoned up said, no, we don't have riff saw. You can't get riff saw. It just doesn't exist. I've got a quote from Gibson Custom Shop, and they said, yeah, we've got some riff saw, but here's the quote, and I could remortgage the house for similar money. And then someone said, I'll try this bloke, and he lived just a couple of doors down from my mum. He said, oh yeah, I've got 5 slabs of it, it's 40 years old, no one ever wants it, come and pick one. And it was just perfect.
Oh, that's cool. It's a really pretty flame, it really is.
And so I call it the Rift Burst.
No, it's very cool. It's very cool. Well, I'm going to take the opportunity to play Ainsley's amplifier for a few seconds before we wind this up. And one of the things I do like about Les Pauls is the fact that you've got this little mini tone palette down here, but oh my life. There's something deeply satisfying about that as it goes into the roar, isn't it?
When it blooms.
Well, yeah. Naughty. I can totally see why Ainsley's got just like, can I just have a nice guitar and a nice amp please and a tuner pedal and that'll do me. But that's great. Well look.
Yeah man.
Thanks for coming down.
I just love building valve amps.
Well, good for you, and I love playing valve amps. Let's hope that we don't die out.
I know.
So there you go. If you're ever in and around the Milton Keynes area in England, you won't be far away from Chris's workshop. I'm sure he'll always make someone a cup of tea if they want to pop in and talk guitar.
I send people next door to Adrian at Thorpe.
Well, you should. You can go do both. Or if you're in Guildford,
spend all the money you want. Yeah.
If you're near Guildford, come in and try some. The sales guys have all had their sort of Rift training today, or some of them have anyway, so they should be able to give you the full lowdown on whatever you want to try. And yes, thank you very much for coming in. Good luck.
Right. I think it's worth saying that I've got quite a big range at Rift, and you can order anything from my range through Andertons, not just the amps that they've got in stock. And if you wanted an amp in a different Tolex or anything, Andertons will just press go on that for you.
It's a good shout. I mean, this is Chris's company is not a hard catalogue with 50 people building amplifiers. It's if you want to phone and say to Chris, "Can you do this?" That's still cool. But yeah, so by all means, ask the guys at Andertons and they'll spec you something up. They can talk to Chris on your behalf or whatever works best for you. But yeah, there you go. So super duper, I enjoyed it.
Excellent.
I liked it. Thank you very much for coming in again.
You're welcome.
Hope you guys found this an interesting and useful video. And if you didn't, at least you can put it on at night when you're struggling to go to sleep and you'll be off within at least 5 minutes. Anyway, I've been the Captain. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.